Welcome to this explainer, where we're going to unpack the incredibly dramatic journey of a destitute outcast who somehow managed to build the largest contiguous empire in human history. We're talking, of course, about Genghis Khan. It's a name that instantly evokes both awe and terror, right? But as you'll see, his origins were absolutely anything but imperial. To really wrap our heads around his massive historical footprint right out of the gate, consider this astonishing estimate. Up to 16 million people living today may be his direct descendants. Just think about that for a second. That is the genetic legacy of a single man and his immediate family. It's a staggering testament to the sheer, unbelievable scale of the empire he ultimately forged across Asia and into Europe. Okay, here's our roadmap for today. We'll be covering the boy named Temujin, forging the Mongol machine, unleashing the horde, the Great Yasa, and finally, the Mongol legacy. Let's jump right in. Part 1, the boy named Temujin. You know, our story actually starts not with some mythical emperor commanding vast armies, but with a boy born around 1162 into absolute chaos on the Asian steppe. Just take a look at this timeline. Between 1174 and 1180, a rapid-fire succession of bitter tragedies forged him into a ruthless survivor. When he was just a kid, his father was poisoned by rival Tartars at a dinner. Instantly, his family was abandoned by their tribe. I mean, they were reduced to total destitution, forced to hunt and fish just to avoid starving to death. Temujin was even captured by a rival clan and forced to wear a heavy wooden collar before making this daring escape. And if all of that wasn't enough, shortly after he married, his new wife, Borte, was abducted by the Merkit tribe in a vicious raid. To put into perspective just how perilous his situation really was, consider this number. After escaping his captors early on, the teenage Temujin came back to find his once proud family with absolutely nothing to their name except 9 horses. And get this, even those were soon stolen in a raid, leaving him with literally a single steed. It was from this absolute rock bottom that he started to build his power, recruiting loyal companions one by one. Moving on to part 2, forging the Mongol machine. So the really crucial question here is, how did this outcast manage to unite dozens of fractured, warring tribes into this unified, unstoppable force? Well, he utilized the tradition of the Kurultai. Basically, it's a grand council of nobles. By 1206, after decades of bitter warfare against his rivals, which actually included his own childhood friend, he convened a massive Kurultai. And it was here that he secured his new title as Genghis Khan, which recent scholarship suggests means fierce ruler. He pulled this off through consensus, shared tactical planning, and the strict promise that everyone would obey his word. But to truly build his machine, he completely replaced messy, ancient tribal loyalties with a brilliant decimal system. The most famous unit was the Tumen, made up of exactly 10,000 men. By binding his soldiers directly to these new, structured units, rather than their old rival clans, he created a unified national identity. You were no longer fighting for your specific family lineage, you were fighting for the Khan. Now, what's really fascinating about his army is this fiercely meritocratic ethos. Promotions were based on raw talent, not aristocratic birth. For instance, during one battle, Genghis was actually shot in the neck by a poisoned arrow. When the enemy archer was brought before him, Genghis didn't execute him. No, he praised the guy's incredible marksmanship, recruited him on the spot, and renamed him Jebe, which translates to the arrow. Jebe actually went on to become one of the greatest commanders in Mongol history. Part 3. Unleashing the Horde. So, with the steppe tribes finally united, restructured, and intensely loyal, Genghis turned his formidable military machine outward toward China and Central Asia. Since they were so frequently outnumbered, the Mongols relied on incredibly deep psychological warfare. And this right here perfectly illustrates their tactical genius, the feigned retreat. They would engage a heavily fortified enemy, stage a chaotic, panicked withdrawal, and purposefully drop their precious loot. Once the enemy broke ranks to chase them and grab the plunder, the Mongol cavalry would wheel around on the open field and slaughter the completely disorganized army. It was a devastating trap that consistently outsmarted massive empires. And look at this number. His horsemen could travel a staggering 65 miles a day. That level of speed gave him absolute strategic dominance. While traditional medieval armies plodded along with these massive, slow supply trains, the Mongols hit like lightning, appearing seemingly out of nowhere to completely overwhelm their foes. This unprecedented mobility was made possible by their highly specialized loadout. Because every warrior had 6 or more horses, they could constantly swap mounts to keep up that relentless 65-mile-a-day pace without exhausting the animals. And they combined their unmatched upper body strength with a composite bow that hit with devastating power, which crucially they could fire accurately while riding at a full gallop.
All right, part 4, the Great Yasa. Genghis wasn't just a warlord endlessly riding across the plains. He actually had to create a sophisticated administrative state to govern all these vast, newly conquered lands. To pull that off, he instituted the Great Yasa. Think of it as a codified framework, a common set of laws that dictated pretty much everything. It covered traditional steppe customs, the strict duties of military officers, and even civilian taxation. It was the glue designed to hold a wildly diverse empire together. But looking at this table, we see a really complex dichotomy. On one side, you have these surprisingly progressive policies, generous tax exemptions for religious leaders, safe passage for Silk Road merchants, a tolerance that actually helped kickstart early globalized trade. But then, on the flip side, you have incredibly brutal, fatal punishments. Under the Yasa, you could face the death penalty for lying or even just for failing to share your food with a stranger. It was extreme.
And that same chilling duality applied directly to his conquests. His formula was brutally simple: promise complete autonomy for peaceful submission, or execute total, horrific devastation if you resist. For example, when a governor in the Khwarezmian Empire executed Genghis' trade envoys, the Mongol response was apocalyptic. Cities were systematically sacked and over 1 million lives were lost in the region. It was sheer psychological warfare designed to terrify the next city into surrendering without a fight. Finally, part 5, the Mongol legacy. We really have to look at the massive geopolitical footprint he left behind after he died from a fall off his horse in August 1227. I think this bewildered quote from the Russian Novgorod Chronicle perfectly captures it. God knows whence he fetched them against us, or where they hid themselves. Doesn't that just say it all? It shows the terrifying suddenness and the unbelievably vast reach of the Mongol incursions that left Europe utterly stunned. As this timeline shows, the momentum of the machine he built definitely didn't die with him. His successors expanded the map even further. They pushed deep into Eastern Europe, they dismantled the centuries-old Arab caliphate with the capture of Baghdad, and eventually, under his grandson Kublai Khan, they fully conquered all of China. Ultimately, his unprecedented success came down to these key factors. He united traditionally divided tribes into a single loyal weapon. He weaponized the sheer speed of the horse archer. And he was incredibly opportunistic, exploiting the weakened, divided states of neighboring empires. So as we wrap up this explainer, we leave you to judge based on the historical record. Was Genghis Khan a pragmatic, meritocratic visionary who connected the East and West? Or was he a ruthless tyrant who built his legacy on unimaginable destruction? Consider the evidence we've explored today and